What's up, everybody? It's Greg with Delta, and this is the Be the Difference podcast. This podcast is all about making you a better person in your life and in your business with coaching on sales, leadership, mindset, marketing, everything under the sun when it comes to being an entrepreneur. And we bring on guest speakers. Today, I've got the honor and pleasure of welcoming Mr. Quentin West. Quentin, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you, Greg? Appreciate you having me.
Oh, dude, it's my pleasure, bro. This is going to be a good podcast. I was just reading your bio, and I was like, this is going to be friggin' dope. I like it.
Absolutely. Well, hope I can drop some value.
Yeah, let's drop that value. I like it.
Let's do it.
So for those of you that don't know Quentin's story is as inspiring as it is intriguing. At the tender age of 21, he boldly made the decision to drop out of Virginia Tech, believing that traditional education was not his path to success. Facing the rugged realities of life, he found himself immersed in construction work, a job he quickly realized was far removed from his aspirations. But Quentin's story took a dramatic turn when he was introduced to the world of real estate. He took on the challenge head on, becoming a real estate agent. And as he began to understand the intricacies of the market, he saw an untapped advantage and opportunity in the Airbnb arbitrage. Quentin started pouring all of his profits from real estate into his venture. His calculated risk and firm belief in the potential of short-term rental properties soon bore fruit. Just 4 short years later, Quentin has successfully built an impressive portfolio of 38 units, generating over $100,000 per month, a testament to his exceptional business acumen. But Quentin's journey doesn't stop at just amassing wealth. He's driven by a desire to educate and empower others to create their own success stories. He's a passionate coach, sharing his knowledge and experiences with thousands of people, inspiring them to unlock their potential in the real estate market. As a forward thinker, Quentin continues to disrupt traditional real estate investing, proving that with the right strategies, anyone can build wealth in that industry. That is friggin' awesome. I've always wanted to get into Airbnb arbitrage. I've always kind of like dabble with that idea.
You should. I think it's a great industry, especially for people just starting out. When I started, I was 21. So it had no money, no credit, nothing. So for me, it was like a dream come true. I found a business where I could literally start with a credit card. So it just took off from there.
So I want to go back to dropping out of school. Talk through that in time, because that's a big change, especially for a young kid. I'm sure your parents are probably super pissed off at you.
Oh yeah,
the brain. Everyone's like, "What are you, stupid? You're crazy. Don't do this," kind of thing. So talk a little bit about that and all the negativity you had to overcome in that process.
Oh yeah, so it was nothing but negativity. I was depressed pretty much every day of my life, going to school, doing something that I absolutely hated, going through coding classes and stuff that was way over my head, and just wasn't in line with who I was as a person. So it was basically felt like I was living somebody else's life, pursuing somebody else's goals and dreams, which at the time were my parents. Wanted me to become an engineer, wanted me to get out and go into construction and kind of make my path that way. But I always had dreams and aspirations of something bigger. I knew I was an entrepreneur by heart. I had smaller businesses that I did growing up. I had a paracord grab handle business in high school where I was selling grab handles because I was into Jeeps at the time. And that worked out really well for me. But, of course, my parents wanted me to focus on my education. I got into engineering school at Virginia Tech. So the business kind of took the back burner, going towards this bigger goal that at the time in high school, I thought was going to be a whole lot more exciting than it actually was. And reality kind of set in once I got into college, going through those lectures and hours of things that I could care less about. I was sitting in class, couldn't keep focus. I'm an ADD kid by heart anyway. So I was focused on
entrepreneurs, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I was focused on, how can I make money? Because like the golden ticket they were dangling over my head of $60,000 a year once you graduated and, basically drug yourself through 4 years of education just wasn't exciting to me. I wanted to make 40,000 or 60,000 in a month or a week or a day. 60,000 in a year just seemed like, paid slavery to me. So, I was always kind of inspired by real estate. Everybody says you want to make money, you want to build long-term wealth, get into real estate. But obviously, as a kid in college, not having money, not having credit, no knowledge, I didn't see my way into that door. Um, and eventually, I just kind of had enough of college, being depressed, sad, having no friends. I was spending basically 22 hours a day by myself. I was skipping class. Even when I was around other people, I had no conversations with them. We had nothing in common. So I just didn't feel the need to talk with any of those people. So finally dropped out. I came back and worked construction with my dad, which still was not fulfilling to me. Ultimately, I wanted to get into real estate. And this is the time where I really started learning. I was driving a truck almost 8 hours a day. So the entire time had it on bigger pockets. I was listening to podcasts. I was watching YouTube videos and just filling my brain with 6 to 8 hours a day on 2 times speed, just, consuming as much content as possible, trying to build my knowledge base. And that's kind of when I got the bug and, really knew that in my heart that, I belonged in real estate, that anything else I did before that was basically a waste of time, or at least, at the bare minimum, me figuring out what wasn't right for me.
I love that you're talking about the concept of consuming content, like when you're driving, right? Or like
Yep.
when you're doing other things. It's crazy that you talk about this. Today, I actually did a story because I listen to podcasts all the time in the car. Like
Yep.
all I listen to, or like, even when I go to the gym and lift, I have a podcast in.
Oh yeah.
And I'm always trying to consume content. I've been doing that since about 2019 because I had a mentor in insurance that was like basically making fun of us. He was like, "If when you're in the car, what do you do? Will you listen to Taylor Swift?" He was like,
Yeah.
does that pay you? No, it pays Taylor Swift. So why don't you start paying yourself by consuming content, by like getting on podcasts, listening to trainings? Like that's all you should be listening to, and just feeding your mind with knowledge, positivity, experiences, etc. And so ever since 2019, that's what I did. I just started listening to straight podcasts and audiobooks all the time.
Yep.
And I did a story today, like kind of asking people, like, "Hey, what do you do? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you listen to audiobooks or music?" And it's kind of split down the middle, but it's so crazy to me. There's so
Yep.
much content, there's so much knowledge that is out there
Mm-hmm.
between podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos. You can literally teach yourself whatever you want. You could be an Uber
Yep.
driver and be, man, I'm down on my luck. I'm not making money. And just start consuming content and absorbing all this information and develop a plan of action
Yep.
from that you can start saving towards and really change the trajectory of your life, your financial future, etc. So I love that you're talking about that, and
Yeah,
your
definitely.
estimate of that.
Definitely. And I think you don't even need to know exactly what your goals are. Like just consume content instead of, like you said, Taylor Swift or the newest album that just came out. Consume content, something that's going to educate you. And just how I got into Airbnb, it was me listening to, content and education over and over again. And finally, I picked up on an idea that kind of set me on fire that I knew I could do and motivated me to take the next step.
Yeah. So talk about how the seed of that idea, how it germinated in your mind and how it came to be today.
Yeah, so I worked construction for about a year and a half. And since I was in school to kind of get into construction engineering, I was able to use my education history plus my construction background to get a loan on a house. I bought a house with a FHA loan and started living in that home. After a while, though, I wasn't able to make my payments. This was right around the point where I decided, hey, construction's not for me. I want to get my real estate license. And I just thought I was going to get my license, start making six figures a year. And it didn't
Does not
happen
work
that
that
way
way.
at all. Didn't
Doesn't
happen
work.
that way at all. So, eventually I was kind of in a financial situation where I was going to either have to sell the house, let it go back to the bank, just do something radical. And I decided to move back in with my parents. And it had been probably maybe 4 or 5 weeks, I've been listening to Airbnb stuff, just consuming that content. I had a friend that was in the business, but I never thought like, hey, why don't I just turn this house into an Airbnb? That just seemed too simple. And then it was at the point where I moved back in with my parents, and I had a friend saying, hey, like, why don't you just Airbnb it? Like, I have a house in the same city doing the same thing, and it's making great money. I always thought with Airbnb, you needed like a vacation rental spot or something, you know, exotic or luxurious. This was just a basic single family home in a rural town. I didn't think it was ever going to make money. Well, long story short, it made $1,000 in profit the first month. The next month, it made $1,500 in profit. And now it got to the point where I was not only making, my mortgage payment every month, but I had a secondary source of income. And that's when a light bulb went off in my head. Like, I can build this to something pretty unique and, you know, build it as a tool for long-term wealth if I keep going. And that was when I started looking for like these zero money down strategies and everything that the gurus talk about to like buy houses with no or little money down. Was listening to a lot of Bigger Pockets with Brandon Turner. He's got a book about no or low money down real estate investing. I read that book. And it never hit me until I listened to a guy talk about arbitrage on YouTube, that I could rent properties and then sublease them on Airbnb. And it was like a rocket went off in my mind. Like, I took action immediately. Like, I finished the YouTube video, immediately went to Zillow, and I was looking for properties that I could rent around the same amount that I was paying in my mortgage. And that was a similar house to what I already had, because I knew that if that concept worked, me owning the house versus renting, as long as the finances were the same, I would make the same amount of money, logically. And that's exactly what happened. Within a week, I was sitting down at a table getting coffee with an owner. We signed a lease. 30 days later, I was making $1,000 to $1,500 a month with that next house. And that's when, I proved the concept. I now have 2 units making $1,000 to $1,500 a month, and basically doubling my salary, what I was making as an agent. I was making $3 or $4 grand a month at the time. And that just really kind of set it off for me. Within 12 months, I was making $14,000 a month in profit with Airbnb alone, not including my real estate agency sales. And within a year and a half, I'd retire myself from sales.
Wow. So it didn't take long to really catch fire. I like how in your experience and in your history, it took you to go through some challenge, right? To get to a point where it's like, man, I got to move back in with my parents. This isn't going right. I'm not, my expectations aren't being met. I'm not hitting the 6 figures I thought I was going to hit. And it was through that adversity that you were able to discover the idea. And I believe, I feel that, like, with a lot of entrepreneurs, that's typically how it happens. It's just jumping in, getting your feet wet, failing, realizing it's not what you thought, but then sticking through and pushing past that adversity in order to find the success. So,
yeah, absolutely. Just like in the gym, you can't grow your body without pain first. Going to the gym and actually exerting a lot of effort. And it's the same thing in business. It's anytime I really wanted to get to the next level, I had to hit some major low points, get past those challenges. And then it got me to a level even past what I was shooting for. So definitely
those challenges are there to prepare you for and teach you the skills necessary to achieve those next levels that you're meant to hit.
Yeah.
Because if like think about like the last breakthrough that you had, where you had challenges that, where are obstacles within your business that got you to a low point, and then you broke through and it put you past. Think about hitting that challenge, but doing it at the very beginning. It would have probably crumbled.
Fall apart.
You'd fall apart. Like, you couldn't have handled it.
Absolutely.
So, like, those challenges are meant to kind of level you up. It's a glide path. It's it's like a type of bell curve that just is like a constant, like, up and down. But as long as you stay on the path, you're constantly going up over time, but you're going to have ups and downs along the way.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, totally agree.
And those challenges get harder and harder every single time, no matter
They
what.
do, they do, but you grow with them. So
Yeah.
that's what helps you get past it. I remember there's been several times where I've had a ton of things stacked against me. I felt so much stress that I was like almost hyperventilating.
Yeah.
And now it's like a daily thing. Like I not the hyperventilating, the equivalent amount of stress. And you just kind of get used to it. Just like again with the gym, like you slowly get used to that those 45-pound dumbbells, and then eventually they become light, and now you're looking towards a heavier weight or a higher
Mm.
stress or a challenge in business.
So let me ask you, how do you what do you do in order to relieve that stress so that you're not, because your body when it goes through that kind of stress, and if you especially when you're under intense amount of stress, even though you're used to it because your body has become accustomed or adjusted to it, it's still messing with your internal, with everything inside of you, with your hormones, with your fight or flight, all that stuff. So what do you do in order to relieve that stress so that you don't have this like eventual breakdown or PTSD or something from like high
Yeah.
stress environments?
Yeah, so I'd say three things. One is working out daily. I work out 6 days a week, at
Mm.
least, sometimes seven. Another one is cold showers. Like if I just feel super stressed, I'll just jump in a cold shower, and 20 minutes later, I'm I'm nailed back in. I'm focused on my work, and nothing else really matters. And then the third one is setting, I call them mental checkpoints. So like if you're experiencing like a time with your family and everything's like perfect in that moment,
Mhm.
I'll set like a mental checkpoint so I can look back and say, I know there's something beyond what I'm going through now.
Mm.
And, there's something, I'll get past this and I'll have many more memories like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like sitting down, being present in the moment and setting those mental checkpoints so you have something to look back on.
Man, I love all of those. Obviously, I like to go to the gym. So yeah, people uh don't understand, or they um misjudge the power of cold therapy. Cold shower or
Absolutely.
cold immersion therapy, doing the uh like what's the cold plunge, right?
Yeah.
All of those actually, there's actual scientific data that shows that when your body gets really cold like that, what happens is that your body goes into like a fight or flight mode, but it thinks it has to survive.
Yep.
And so it starts to pump endorphins through your body really quickly
Absolutely.
in order to survive, because your body temperature is dropping. And what that does is it renews your fight or flight mechanism that's in the back of your spine,
Yep.
and it releases stress that you have been building up over time. And
Yep.
doing cold showers are the friggin' best, man.
Oh yeah,
They really are.
absolutely. To me, it's just a reset. Once I get to like, I feel like I'm at a breaking point. Just
Yeah.
jump in the shower, whatever time of the day, and it's like a complete reset. Now I'm fresh. I can jump into the next thing, and instead of going and laying on the couch or something for an hour, or taking a nap, 20 minutes, you're good to go again.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. Not a lot of people talk about that, and that's something that I think is a good strategy. Is it difficult to do initially? Yes. Like
Oh yeah,
you don't
absolutely.
want to do it. You don't want to do it. But there's something mentally strong about that. Like looking at anything, you put yourself in any challenging situation, jumping into a cold shower. Like, and when you do it, by the way, just turn the water on at the coldest possible setting, jump in and start washing yourself. Like, don't put
Yeah,
it hot and then cold. Like, just
yeah,
put it cold, jump in, get over it. Cause if you're actually doing something, it takes your mind off of it a little bit, makes it a little bit easier. But putting yourself for intentionally into a difficult or challenging situation, it makes it to where the other difficult and challenging things in life, they're easier to do.
yeah. Absolutely.
You're mentally, you're more disciplined to do them. So when you come out, you're actually energized. Your body's like literally energized from doing that. And so then
Definitely.
you get out and you're like, all right, what do I got to do? Now you're more willing to attack the day because you're like,
Yeah,
well, damn, I just did a cold shower. What else I do? Like, oh, that's
that's
easy
right.
comparatively in my mind. So
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I thrive on doing stuff like that, the hard stuff that like normal people don't want to do. Like they look at you and they're like, you're crazy. Like, okay, sign me up. you know?
exactly. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'd rather be that than not be crazy and then just be lazy on the couch because I'm
Yep.
depressed or like I'm letting the stress get to me so much that it's like, oh, I need a break. Next thing you know, you're like scrolling Netflix for like the third hour and you're
Yeah.
watching stuff that's like meaningless and
Yeah.
doesn't help your life at all.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So
For sure.
so what are some, we've been you kind of, broke down your come up and how you got to where you're at now. So you got the bona fides. You've been doing this. You have some success. If someone's listening to this, they're like, man, how do I get into this? What are some of the things that you learned and so over the not only the podcast that you listened to leading up to it, but in your experience thus far that could help people to just like expedite their learning journey or to jump into this?
Yeah. So I want to start with real estate in general, real estate investing, because no matter what field you're in, if you're in sales, mortgages, whatever you're doing, like real estate investing should be the long-term goal. Not everybody can do arbitrage. You may already have a high income producing job, and that's great. To me, arbitrage is just a cash flow machine. That's it. So arbitrage was the tool for me to build the monthly cash flow so that we can reinvest in long-term rentals, apartment complexes, self-storage, things that are going to generate long-term wealth where, we might can rehab a 100-unit apartment complex and make a million at once.
Mm.
It's the tool for that. So if you already have a high producing job, unless you just want to replace it with arbitrage, I would recommend just going straight into real estate. So if you're making 150 plus a year, just start putting $5,000 a month back into real estate. To get into arbitrage specifically, the most important thing is going to be to build your credit first. Learn how to build your credit and then leverage your personal credit to build business credit. Because the thing about business credit, whether you max the credit card out or not, it's not going to affect your personal score. With your personal credit, if you go and max out your JCPenney's card or whatever, it's going to affect your utilization, which is going to drive your score down. With business credit, it doesn't do that.
Mm.
So build your business credit first. Now you have more tools you can use to reinvest that into the arbitrage business. You can also do co-hosting. There's two ways to start. Arbitrage, which is when you use either your own money, somebody else's money, or a credit card, HELOC, so forth. Or you could do the co-hosting model where you manage for other people. If I was starting over again, I would focus more on co-hosting, honestly, because with co-hosting, you need no money. You need no credit. You need nothing. You just need to find somebody that owns a property and show them the potential with Airbnb and then manage it for them for 20% of the revenue. We're making up to $2,000 a month on some of the properties we're co-hosting for, and I have nothing in them.
Mm.
Where else can you do that? Like, getting into software or something like that, but that's so complicated. A lot of people have homes. You can either partner with somebody that wants to do arbitrage. They put all the money up, you find the property, and then you just co-host it for them. You can make, 800 to 2,000 plus a month. And it's really endless. And then you can scale that infinitely because it's not based on your personal cash or credit.
That's a good strategy. Is there any specific type of person like, hey, if this is the kind of person you are, if this is what you're looking for, like arbitrage may or may not be for you?
If you don't want to do the work, because
If you're
I mean,
lazy.
if you're lazy, because so we coach as well. That's
Yeah.
what I spend the majority of my time on now. We get a lot of people that come in and we jump on a call just to kind of see what they're going through, a discovery call. And they're like, well, I'm looking for something that's passive that, I could put the money in and then just set it and forget it. I'm like, dude, this is not for you. And in fact, business is not for you. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing on the planet where you're just going to throw money at it and it's just going to throw money at you for the rest of your life. Like, you're going to have to at least manage a person or software or something to get that money back. You don't
Mm.
just get something from nothing. Um, so that in particular, and then if you're just making a couple hundred grand a year already, I would just jump into multifamily unless you just love Airbnb. But if it's just about the money, like if you just want a business that's cash flowing, there's a lot better businesses and long-term ways to make money. Like, there's no need to overcomplicate your life by unless you just don't love what you do, like where I was at.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to overcomplicate your life if you already have the cash flow. Like, Airbnb is a cash flow machine.
How difficult is it to jump into a multifamily? And when you say multifamily, are you talking like duplexes also, or is there? Do you
Yeah, so
recommend like a fourplex or an eightplex?
yeah, so I mean, for me, I'm looking at 10 units or more, but the definition is 5 units or more.
Okay.
So anything under 5 units is like single family multi. Anything
Mhm.
above that is like commercial multifamily. Um, so and the way that the biggest difference is the way that they're valued. So like residential multifamily is based on comparables. Commercial multifamily is based on revenue, how much ROI or net operating income the property's making every year. So if you raise the money, you raise the value. So
Mhm.
just by bumping the rents 50, $100 on each unit, you're potentially adding $1 million to the value of the property. That's why it's so easy to scale once you get a couple of those big complexes under your belt. Just raise the rents, and now you've added a ton of equity in your portfolio.
Mm. Mm. What's if someone were looking? I've thought about multiplexes too. If someone were looking for like a five or an eightplex, um, what can they expect to have to put down to purchase one? Like, what would be a good deal?
Um, a good deal depends on the market.
Mhm.
Like, some markets you're going to pay 50,000 a unit. If you're looking at like class A, you're going to pay 150, 200,000 a unit. So it just depends on the location, really. Because 100,000 a unit may be a great deal in California, but in North Carolina, where I am, that's a lot to ask for, especially in a rural area. As far as down payment, you're looking at 20 to 30% down for a unit like that.
Okay. So 20%. So let's say, I live in Texas. So say in Texas, like 75,000 or 70,000 per unit is good, right?
Yeah,
That's a good deal, we'll say.
yeah,
So and it's a 10 plex, so that's 700,000 for the total building. And then
yep,
you just pay down 20% at the start. So 140,000.
yep, 140,000.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how usually what's the turnaround for when you start actually getting tenants in and making cash flow off of that?
So to stabilize an asset like that, depending on how far down, like how run down the property is and when the leases renew, you're probably looking at a year and a half to
Okay.
stabilize it fully, where everybody's at market rent now. Nobody is still on an older lease, and all the units are renovated and nicer where you can charge market rent.
Okay. Okay. That's not a bad. I mean, if you have the cash flow and you don't mind the time
Yep.
sink in order to get the everything renovated and get everything done, it's actually not bad when you think about it.
No, I mean, I think about big complexes like that as just single units. Like, think about if you had 5 or 10 houses going on at the same time. Like, when one is starting, the other one's finishing, and then you're adding another one to the portfolio, or you're selling one here. Like, we're selling one of our Airbnbs. My second Airbnb, I actually bought this house with money I took out on a HELOC from my primary. Um, I paid 130,000 for it. That was in 2019, and we're selling it on the 27th for 239. So we made over 100 grand in 4 years, little over 3.5 years. So like invest in real estate. I mean, it sat there and made me money every month since. We made $1,000 a month minimum every month since I bought it. And now we're going to make a lump sum of 100,000 on one sale.
Oh, wow.
So, and I didn't have to do anything but manage the property. So, I mean, where else can you get that kind of return?
How much management goes into it on it for an average property, one property? How much, once you get your systems in place? I'm sure you have some systems and strategies that you do specifically that you've learned along the
Yep.
way. How many hours do you have to sink in order to manage one property a week?
To manage one, I don't know, maybe 5 hours a week. If you really know what you're doing. When I first started, it was a full-time gig because I was cleaning the houses
Oh,
myself because
yeah,
I needed the money. That extra $100 was like, oh my gosh, this is free money.
yeah,
But as you continue to grow, you see the like you scale, and the value of that cleaning gets lower and lower, and eventually, like, your time to find more properties is worth more than you could ever get paid in cleaning.
Mhm.
So yeah, and it's very scalable. I mean, we have 38 units. I still only work like an hour a day on that business. Everything else is built, or is spent coaching other people, getting on podcasts, building my brand as a person, which will then drip into everything else I decide to do in the future, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. Because when I first started insurance, it was crazy. Like how much time I had to put into it and
Yeah.
through learning the basics and sales and everything. And then it got to a point where I started getting very expedited and got very good. And then when I started my IMO with Delta Financial, it was full time. Like it was like 80 hours, 90 hours a week, just constant go, go,
Yeah.
go, go. But then we started putting systems and strategies and processes in place to where it could buy back my time and all the leaders' time, and it made everything more scalable. So now I
Yeah.
can spend less time doing that. I can start spending more time on like outreach, doing podcasting. Like I'm flying up Friday to go do a stage speaking and record a podcast with somebody else's podcast in person. Um,
Awesome.
and then I started my coaching. I started doing coaching and life coaching, like nutrition, fitness, mindset coaching.
Yeah.
Be able to start branching out and do other things while still managing my insurance side, but I don't have to put as many hours into it in order to make sure that's still thriving.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with a lot of people just starting out, and I was guilty of this too, like they try to start with too many streams of income.
Mhm.
Like they had that saying, like the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. They didn't start with 7. They got really freaking good at one source, automated it basically, and then used that income to build into something else.
Mhm.
And I'll have people coming to me and they're like, "Well, what are you doing now for work?" "Oh, I'm a landscaper. I've got a drop shipping business. I'm trying to wholesale, and I want you to teach me Airbnb." I'm like, "Okay, well, if you want to be successful in any of these, drop all of them but one." Like,
Mhm.
you're telling me you can't even make your house payment right now, but you have 5 businesses and you're trying to start another one. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like, get your finances straight first. Like, whatever is your biggest income maker, focus on that one. Build it to the point where you're at least stable and you're making your bills, and then look for something more.
Mhm.
Like, you have no business trying to build another business when none of the other ones are successful.
Yep, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Any last tips or pieces of information you want to give to the audience, maybe where they can find you, or if they want to learn more about your coaching, they want to kind of they're interested in arbitraging or real estate, and they're looking for a mentor or coach like you to help them expand.
Yeah, definitely. The best place to find me is just on Instagram. Q
Okay.
Deals Homes, Instagram. And you could shoot me a DM, ask for questions. I'm more than happy to help anybody that I can. Um, yeah.
Nice. Perfect. Last question I have for all my guests, Quentin. You had the opportunity to sit with, learn from, break bread with, and spend some time with three people. Anyone in history, alive or deceased. Who were those three and why?
Um, I'd have to say the Rockefellers for one. Um, I just think everything they've ever done is pretty amazing, down to the business and their life insurance policies, how they set those up to only cash out a certain percentage with each new generation that comes, so that they basically have unlimited wealth forever.
Mhm.
And that's something we're kind of setting up in our life as well. Um, I think Russell Brunson is probably up there as well. Just his whole story is super inspiring. How he built ClickFunnels and everything that he's bleeding that into now is pretty amazing. Um, who else? I'd say Donald Trump would probably be my third, and not even getting into anything political, but just his entire story from building his real estate portfolio in New York to then getting into acting and then becoming the president of the United States. I think he's just a super inspiring person, and his story is, I don't know, he's lived a crazy story. Oh, and I'll add a fourth one since I recently watched this movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger, his recent show that he's got on Netflix. I just finished that, and I didn't even realize everything that he'd done in his life. But it's pretty inspiring
Was
too.
it the Netflix documentary?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw someone sent that to me. I'm a big Arnold fan. I got a big old Arnold poster right there with him. This is
Okay.
um and now he's a extremely inspiring person.
Yeah.
It's his mindset. One of the things that he talks he was like a master at mindset
Yeah.
even when he was young, when he was in his bodybuilding days. And so there's a story. He was when he was getting into Conan the Barbarian, he had just came off of a winning Mr. Olympia. It was one of his Mr. Olympias, and at the time he was 245 because he was in competition shape, and the director told him he was too big and that he
Yeah.
had to lose by like the time that they started filming, he had to lose like 20 or 30 pounds. And it was a really short, it was like 6 weeks. And he
Yeah.
was like, you got to think someone like him who's competing and trying to get a perfect shape. Now he's got
Yeah.
to lose that much weight. And so he just started running, and he never ran before. And so he literally started thinking and telling himself, I'm a runner, I'm a runner, I'm a runner, and started enjoying the running process and literally lost the weight, was able to do the movie, but
That's
just by
awesome.
the self-talk and like the self-identification of who he was made him enjoy the process to where he actually accomplished what he was trying to accomplish and lose that weight in such a short time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I think he's a great person I'd like to sit down and have a conversation with him. He seems kind of down to earth too.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
seems like
Definitely.
real down to earth. So like a wise old grandpa that would just like tell you.
Yeah.
That's what he seems like nowadays.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. I appreciate you jumping on the podcast and just sharing your story and sharing that experiences and providing some value to everybody. So for those of you listening, if you listen to now, then obviously you got some value. Do me a favor, go show Quentin some love at Q Dill's Homes. Go follow him, go check him out. And if you have any questions, reach out to him, see if he can help you. And maybe he would be a good fit to help to coach you to expand your real estate business. If you also got value from this, then do me a favor, share this content. It means the world to both Quentin and I that you can share this content with somebody else that might be able to get value from it. It takes you 30 to 60 seconds just to rate, review, subscribe, and share. But it means the world to both Quentin and I. This has been the Be the Difference podcast. I'm your host, Greg Birch. Until next time, we'll see you.